All right, so today we're going to do a little bit of a fun video. I think you guys will like this one. What we're going to do is we are going to rate a bunch of foreign military special forces units from best to worst, okay? To caveat that, these are all units I worked with personally over my 10 plus year career in Army Special Forces. All right, this isn't going to be some video where I just generically talk about some things I've heard. Okay, this is firsthand experience, and you guys may find where I rack and stack some of these units pretty interesting. Okay, so excuse me. So what I need to do first, and also I'm going to talk about why, and also the types of things that we actually did with these units. Okay, so first thing you need to know is which units I've worked with. Okay, so it's quite a few. We'll just go down the list. All right, top to bottom. British SAS, the Australian SAS, Australian 2 Commando, Canadian SF, POLSOC, which is Polish Special Forces, SOC Corps, so Korean Special Forces, JSOC, Japanese Special Forces, Mongolian Special Forces, the PNP SAF, which is the Filipino Special Forces, one of their units, Afghan Commandos, and Afghan Special Forces. Okay, very distinct difference between those two. Okay, Afghan Commandos and Afghan SF are not the same thing. And then there will be some honorable mentions of just because of current events in the world, but we'll talk a little bit about Israeli and Ukraine Special Forces. Obviously, I wasn't a 10th group guy, so I never worked with them, but I do have buddies, so I can talk a little bit about it. But let's jump right into it. Okay, so. Now, not to say that any of these units are particularly bad. Well, we'll talk about if they are. But some are much better than others, and I think it may surprise you. So we're going to start from worst, working our way all the way up to best. I'm going to talk a little bit about each unit and why I put them where I put them. Okay, so we're coming in at dead last of everybody I've worked with, not even close, is the Afghan Commandos. Okay, again, these are not the Afghan Special Forces guys. They're basically one level up from the Afghan National Army. These guys were absolutely terrible. They didn't care about anything. They would smoke weed on the objective. You never knew if they were going to shoot you in the back. They wouldn't fight. Yeah, just a terrible partner force to work with overall. And anytime we had to go out with them, it was always always a negative experience. Okay, so dead last, the Afghan Commandos. All right, coming in next, and I think this is going to shock some people, being at the bottom. Okay, and that is going to be, and I'm going to put a couple of these together depending on where I've rated them. That's going to be the SOC Corps Korean Special Forces and the Japanese Special Forces. Okay, and why are they rated so low? All right, so anybody who's worked with either of these units knows, okay, training with these guys and doing targets with these guys, it's all theater, okay? They care more about how the optics of what they're doing is to their chain of command than they do about getting better. So they want to, if we're gonna do a final scenario type mission, right, they want to know every single step, every single little thing that's going to happen, where every bad guy is going to be, because they don't want to look bad in front of their chain of command, as it's part of their culture. Okay, not to say that these guys tactically aren't higher rated, because they are tactically better than some of the follow-on units, but just working with them is just a pain in the ass because of that, right? Whereas other units don't care about that type of thing, right? They want to train, they want to get better. These guys, all they care about is the optics of it, just because of the way the whole structure works. And unlike almost every other unit on here, including the Afghan ones, they got no combat experience, right? Like, all of their experience, they didn't join the war on terror. They didn't fight with us, right? Whereas most of other NATO did. Now, right, they're maybe here and there, right? But on a large scale. So they have they're not tested. That's the reality of it. So that's why they're getting ranked so low. So sorry, but spent a lot of time actually in my career working with those two units, specifically probably more than any of the rest, right? So very frustrating, a lot of time to work with them because of that. But, some great dudes intermingled, just the way they're set up and structured. Yeah, not great. All right, next up is going to be the P&P SAF. So the Filipinos are going to be a little bit higher than the other two. Tactically, they are not as good as either the Japanese or the Koreans. However, these guys actually engage in real combat in southern Philippines, right? They go down to Mindanao. There's a bunch of terrorist cells and terrorist organizations in the southern Philippines. Not only that, their final colex of their qualification course is to actually go down to the south, go on real missions, and get in real gunfights, which I think is wild for students to be doing. And fun guys to work with, right? Again, tactically, they're very near the bottom, but they actually have their combat tested, right? So they get moved up a little bit higher in the rankings. Next is going to be the Polsock. Okay, worked with them a little bit in Afghanistan, not that much, right? They're more on our base, track what they were doing, things like that. Generic, decent, soft unit, pretty well trained, but nothing crazy comparatively, right? So kind of ranked in the middle, obviously above some of these other units, pretty good. But yeah, sort of, I would say an average level soft unit. Now, again, average level soft unit is way higher than any regular military unit, but I would say kind of run of the mill average, right? Next, that's actually gonna be a little surprising, is the Mongolian Special Forces. These guys were shockingly good and proficient at what they did. So we were there doing primarily mountaineering, mountain climbing, rock climbing, different types of stuff. And these dudes, from a mountaineering standpoint, were way better than our team was, right? They were really, really good. And part of it makes sense because part of their culture is, 1,000 years ago, they were rock climbing to the top of crazy high mountains to get golden eagle eggs to bring back down to raise and use, right? So kind of part of the culture, but also they could shoot well. Tactically, they were good. Very surprising that they were as good as they were. So I think it ranked pretty high. Next up, near the top, right, is the Afghan Special Forces. Okay, Afghan military got a lot of shit talked on it for how bad it was. True across the board, but the Afghan Special Forces guys were highly proficient. These are the guys that have been trained by Green Berets for 10 plus years. They've been fighting the Taliban for 10, 15 years. The most combat tested unit out of all the ones we've talked to by far. I saw some guys do some insane shit in gunfights. Now, nowhere near what an American military soft unit is. It's not even comparable or close, but actually, probably one of the better soft units was the Afghan Special Forces, mainly because they're just in war for 15 years, right? So they are battle tested. All right, moving up, we're getting near the top, okay? The Canadian Special Forces guys, every year we do a lot of airborne operations in first group with the Canadian SOF during Menton Week and things like that. Really great dudes. And, they were in combat with us in the early years of global war on terror as well. So pretty proficient unit. I don't know where they're at currently based off of the Canadian culture and the prime minister they have and the destruction of the military that's going on, much the same way it's going on in the American military. So they may be facing a lot of challenges until they get rid of the problems that they have. Next up, and we're getting near the top, is these are pretty close, is the British SAS. Same thing, military freefall operations with them. Good dudes, obviously spent a lot of time in war with us. Very comparable to the U.S. military SOF, okay? So really, U.S., British, and then the very top, and part of this, it won due to skill level, combat experience, but also enjoyability to work with. Why these guys get ranked number one, and that is the Aussie 2 Commando and SAS. They're two different units. I work more with the 2 Commando guys, and man, one, highly proficient. Okay, these guys are insanely good at air operations, Halo, and especially fast roping. Super good at fast roping, the Aussie 2 Commando guys. Great unit, super fun to work with. The guys are absolutely out of their mind. They're crazy. They're like American soft guys, but even wilder. And super enjoyable to be with because of that. Also, worked with them in Australia, in Darwin, Melbourne areas, and the cool thing about their unit is they have domestic authority. So obviously the U.S. military doesn't have domestic authority. I can't personally just go out and arrest people on the street. Australian 2 Commando can, right? So with that, we were able to do super cool missions where one mission we took down an international airport that had like 200 people in it with role players. We took down a seaport, like flew Chinook helicopters like into the middle of a city, landed in the street, like super cool stuff that we were able to do with the Aussie 2 Commando guys. And those guys have a ton of combat experience alongside us as well. So those guys get the #1 spot out of everybody I've worked with in my career, as a bunch of different caveats. So again, where you're ranked is not necessarily directly due to skill level necessarily or tactical proficiency, but the other things involved, right? So the caveats one I said I would talk about, right? Israel and Ukraine. Okay, so Ukrainian SF has been working with 10th Group. 10th Group handles Europe, right? It's no secret. For 10 plus years, or 10-ish years, I guess, since we went in and overthrew the government and installed a pro-American president. So they've been working together for a long time. So Ukrainian SOF is very, very good. They're highly trained and have worked with American Green Berets for a long time. And they're the main reason probably why Russia is having such a difficult time dealing with Ukraine in that conflict, right? So again, haven't worked with them myself, but I do know guys that have, and they're highly proficient, right? They are definitely a first world SOF unit. And then Israel, right? Israel has a notoriously good special operations unit. Makes a lot of sense, right? They're living in the center of the Islamic world, where everyone around them wants to see their country destroyed and killed. So when every one of your neighbors wants to invade and cut all your heads off, then you definitely need to have a really impressive military, right? So Israeli SOF, insanely good. Ukrainian SOF, very, very good. And then, work down your line from there. So if you guys have any other questions about other SOF units, I do know a little bit here and there, but again, my experience is primarily with those 10-ish plus. And yeah, hope you guys found this kind of interesting. And if you want to talk shit about how I ranked them, that's fine. Throw it in the comment section. We can talk about it. All right, guys. Oh, and don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Helps the algorithm, helps boost the channel. Channel's doing really well, so appreciate it. Take care.